China has just made its most audacious move yet in the West Philippine Sea. In mid-October 2025, Chinese forces began installing new buoys, deploying maritime enforcement teams, and flying J-16 fighter jets directly over Scarborough Shoal, deep inside Philippine waters. The escalation came even as joint Philippine military exercises were underway nearby. The Philippine Coast Guard confirmed at least 2 new Chinese buoys placed within the shoal's perimeter. Supported by the arrival of massive patrol ships numbered 101 and 301. Within hours, a People's Liberation Army naval drill began only 17 nautical miles away. Just days before, a Philippine reconnaissance aircraft was intercepted at close range by a Chinese J-16. An encounter Manila denounced as reckless and unlawful. For many Filipinos, this confrontation is not a distant headline. It's happening on their doorstep. Scarborough Shoal lies just 124 nautical miles from Zambales, well within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Once a rich fishing ground, it is now slowly being fenced off by foreign hands. Beijing's message is clear. We command these waters, you merely border them. But this time, the Philippines didn't step back. Military drills continued. Coast Guard vessels stayed on station. The government doubled down on transparency, documenting every act of Chinese coercion, turning aggression into global awareness. The world took notice. Allies responded in unison. The United States, Japan, Australia, and several European nations expressed full support for Manila, recognizing the confrontation as a test of international law. Western diplomats reaffirmed that the rules-based order and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea must apply everywhere, including the South China Sea. Scarborough Shoal is no longer just a reef. It's the front line of the Indo-Pacific. If China secures it fully, Taiwan could be next, and the Pacific's balance could tip overnight. The conflict is no longer hypothetical. The frontiers are being drawn in real time, and the question now is who moves first. Scarborough sits barely 120 nautical miles from Luzon, legally inside the Philippines' economic zone under international law. Yet for over a decade, China has maintained de facto control since the 2012 standoff, when its maritime forces blockaded the shoal and expelled Filipino fishermen. The legal reality, however, tells another story. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration at The Hague struck down China's 9-dash line, ruling it baseless under UNCLOS. The tribunal affirmed that Scarborough is a traditional fishing ground open to Filipino, Chinese, and Vietnamese fishermen alike. But 9 years later, China continues to enforce its own version of law through blockades, militia fleets, and now permanent markers and buoys. Beijing's strategy unfolds in 2 synchronized phases. First, normalize military control. Second, legitimize it through bureaucracy. What appears as routine patrols and administrative zones is, in truth, a campaign to turn a Philippine fishing ground into a Chinese stronghold. In early October 2025, China raised the stakes further by deploying an H-6 bomber armed with YJ-12 anti-ship missiles, a weapon with a reach of up to 500 kilometers, capable of striking across the entire West Philippine Sea. The signal was unmistakable. China now holds the ability to threaten or destroy any vessel that challenges its claim. At sea, Chinese Coast Guard operations have surged. By January 2025, activity around Scarborough hit over 120 ship days, nearly double the average from the previous year. This is not law enforcement. It is saturation control, a psychological campaign to make Chinese presence seem permanent. Alongside the military push came a political maneuver. The world remembers the 2016 ruling. It remains binding under international law, reaffirming that Scarborough lies within the Philippines, EEZ, and rejecting China's sweeping claims. In essence, China is building legal walls where none should exist. Scarborough is no longer just a flashpoint. It is a theater of overlapping warfare, legal, political, and maritime. China's approach is methodical, designed to tighten control one measure at a time. Manila has responded with firmness. The Philippine Coast Guard, in one of its strongest statements to date, vowed to uphold international law and defend the nation's maritime jurisdiction. This commitment is more than rhetoric. It's a pledge to every Filipino fisherman forced to sail under shadow. The government's response extends beyond diplomacy. Through fuel assistance and escort programs, Filipino fishermen are now receiving direct logistical support to continue operating in traditional waters despite Chinese intimidation. Each trip to sea is an act of quiet defiance and survival. Data from maritime monitors show how tense the region has become. Between August 2024 and May 2025, Chinese and Philippine vessels confronted each other on 121 separate days. Weekly standoffs have become the new normal. The international community is now deeply involved. The United States has issued sharp condemnations, declaring China's moves illegal and destabilizing. Washington reaffirmed its defense commitments under the Mutual Defense Treaty, calling Beijing's nature reserve an unlawful attempt to redraw borders by force. Japan, Australia, and the European Union followed with similar statements, praising Manila's restraint and exposing China's coercive tactics. By choosing transparency over escalation, the Philippines has built something powerful, an alliance of nations standing behind UNCLOS, the 2016 ruling, and freedom of navigation. But beneath this diplomatic struggle lies a deeper danger. Scarborough Shoal is becoming central to China's long-term strategic design, a potential link in what analysts call the nuclear bastion network, if fully militarized with radars, sensors, and missile systems. The shoal could form part of a defensive triangle connecting Hainan Island and the Spratly Chain, a zone where Chinese ballistic missile submarines could operate undetected. Such a transformation would shift the regional balance, giving Beijing a shielded corridor for nuclear deterrence and putting Luzon, the South China Sea, and even U.S. carrier routes within striking range. In a Taiwan conflict, Scarborough could serve as a forward base, monitoring, intercepting, or pressuring Allied forces in the Philippine Sea. Its proximity to Philippine military bases under the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement makes it a key vulnerability and a point of leverage. Every buoy, every patrol, every low-flying jet is part of this slow, deliberate squeeze. Each incident raises the odds of catastrophe, a collision, a ramming, a miscalculated shot that could trigger a treaty response. One fatality aboard a Philippine government vessel could activate the Mutual Defense Treaty, drawing in the world's strongest military power. In such a moment, a small reef could ignite a regional crisis with global consequences. Scarborough Shoal now stands as the epicenter of a contest far larger than territory. It embodies the struggle between might and law, coercion and sovereignty. The world watches as the Philippines holds its line not just for itself, but for the rules that keep the seas open and nations equal. Because what happens here will echo across the Indo-Pacific, and one wrong move could set the region ablaze.